I'm with Rocky Mountain Training. We are a training company that is based in Evergreen, Colorado. That's about 30 miles west of Denver, up in the Rocky Mountains. I have been training on FrameMaker for 30 years. I use it, I work on developing templates, and I deliver training classes, along with other Adobe programs that you'll see listed here. I'm also an Adobe Community Forum moderator, which means I stop by the community pages on a daily basis and try to answer some questions that come from users like you. You'll see me there if you haven't already. I have a lot to cover over the next hour and 15 minutes, so I'm going to be moving fairly quickly. I want to remind you that this webinar is recorded, so you can definitely watch it again and again if you would like to. You can also reach out to me directly with questions if you would like. You can take advantage of my blog, which is at rockymountaintraining.com/blog. I have 13 years of Adobe FrameMaker questions and answers from my past students. And as I said, I work on the community forums. You can certainly go to the forum page and you can peruse the questions that have already been asked and answered, and you can ask us your own questions. We welcome questions on the forum page. That said, I want to go ahead and get started with my first webinar, which is an introduction to Adobe FrameMaker. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window. This first webinar is intended for the novice FrameMaker users, for people who have not been using FrameMaker very long or even at all. I want to talk about the FrameMaker interface, the components of a FrameMaker document, and then put together a very basic FrameMaker document with you. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the welcome screen. You're going to see this welcome screen whenever you open FrameMaker. It has three components. On the far left, we have the link to the recently opened files. You can see more. There's a button to show more recently opened files. In the middle, there are two important sections. One is the version that you're using. If your file is not up, if your program is not up to date, it will tell you that up here. You can always go to Help Updates to update to the current version. And then also in this middle section, we have buttons to create new documents, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. On the far right-hand side, we have access to resources. FrameMaker is a robust program. Even those of us who've used it for 30 years don't know everything. We know a lot, but there's always more to learn about FrameMaker. If you're a newer user, don't be afraid to use the resources you see here. You can access free webinars, you can read white papers, you can look at demo videos. My company is an Adobe partner. You'll see me there. And of course, don't forget the forums where you can go ask us questions whenever you like. Okay, so from here what I'd like to do is look at a finished document with you. I want to discuss the interface, and then I want to break down what a basic FrameMaker document looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the final file and open it up. And this particular file, sorry, I'm just changing my view there. This particular file is opening up with a very clean interface. I don't have a lot happening on screen just to minimize it while I'm talking about FrameMaker. So if you look at the top of my screen, top left, this is the menu bar at the very top. It starts with File, goes to Edit and Insert, and all the way across to the Help menu. These are where all the commands are located. Under the menu bar, we have the tab bar, and there is a tab for every open file. I currently have 4 files open. If I want to switch between a file in FrameMaker, and I often need to do that when I'm working in my book documents, I just click the name of the file I want to go to, and that's how we handle document switching. The welcome screen will stay open on the far left-hand side of the tab bar. You can switch back to that at any time if you would like to. You can close it. There's an X here to close it, but just notice it will come back when you close all your open documents or the next time you open up FrameMaker. At the very bottom of my screen, and I'm pointing way down here and then trying to get your attention with those little circles, this whole gray bar that runs across the bottom of the screen is called the status bar. And the status bar indicates where you are within the document. Currently, my cursor is blinking up here on line number 1. If I double click the first word in line 1 to get your attention, you can probably see that more easily. You'll be able to look down here and you can see that FrameMaker is telling me that my cursor is in flow A. That's the main flow or main story in FrameMaker. And in 2022, most of us just use a single flow in our documents. There are times to have additional stories, sidebars perhaps, in a FrameMaker document, but it doesn't happen that often anymore. So you're typically going to be in flow A unless you have a reason to be someplace else. And then I have the paragraph style indicated. Now, a paragraph style is a really important feature in FrameMaker. All of the formatting in FrameMaker starts with using paragraph styles. And this particular one is called heading 0. That's my top level heading. If I come down to line 17 and I highlight some text on this paragraph, my paragraph style now says it's heading 1. A paragraph style has two components. It has a short descriptive name, describes the paragraph you're looking at or working with, and then it has a definition. And the definition describes exactly how that paragraph is going to look, the typeface, size, style, color, alignment, etc. We'll talk more about paragraph styles, but I want you to start thinking about them early, and we'll keep going with them. Now, in the middle section of the status bar, we have the page navigation buttons. There's a button to go to the next page and one to go to the last page of the document. There's one for the previous page and one for the first page. FrameMaker documents tend to be pretty long. My 8-page file that I'm using to demo today is a very short FrameMaker document. And so if you need to go to the middle of a long document, you don't want to click that next page button a bunch of times. Instead, consider highlighting the page number in that little box and typing in the page you want to go to. I'm typing in a 4. And when I press the Enter key on the keyboard, I'm going to navigate to page 4. That's another way to move through the document. To the right of the last page button, I have the page status. The page status area is going to tell me what page I'm on and how many pages I have in my file. As I said, I'm currently on page 4, and this is an 8-page document. When I go back and click the first page button, my page status says that I'm now on page 1 of an 8-page document. Now, if you glance at my screen, you'll notice I have line numbers visible. You can turn the line numbers off and on through the View menu. For example, I can go to the View menu and I can hide my line numbers. They're no longer visible. I can go to the View menu and show my line numbers. I really like that feature when I use it in a collaborative workflow with other people. If we're looking at this file online, perhaps as an Adobe PDF, and I want them to look at a particular section and talk to me about it, I can give them a very specific instruction. Say, please go to page 1, for example, and go to line 17. They can very easily navigate there. Now, as I continue along to the right of the status bar, I can see that there is another white box, and the second white box shows my line number. If I come up here and I click on line 2, it says, okay, Barb, you're still on page 1, but now you're on line number 2. So that's going to tell me exactly where I am in the document. Now, one of the features I really like about the FrameMaker interface is the next button I see on my status bar. It's this black button to the left of the minus symbol. Here's how I use it. If I'm working in a FrameMaker file and I'm thinking, what did I do on some other page? And I scroll off to go see whatever it was I needed to look up. I can figure out what I want, and then I need to get back to where I was. It's not unlikely for me to have forgotten what page I was on when I started scrolling. So as long as I don't click my mouse, if I just click this next button to the right, this returns me to the page with the insertion point. If I click it, I'm back on the page with my cursor. So I find that to be really handy. The last thing on the status bar are the magnification commands. There is a minus button, and if I click the minus button until I can't click it anymore, it'll take me all the way down to a 25% magnification. It's zooming really far out. Now, this is obviously not a view intended for editing. If I want to edit the text, I just can't see it. But if I'm looking at a client's file for the first time, I will zoom all the way out to 25% magnification, just like this, to get an overview of the file. I can see how long it is. I can see what the basic layout looks like. I can see if there are images included in the file, if there are tables in the file, if there's colors in the file. This file looks like it has some lists because I can see a lot of indenting going on. We'll get to that a little bit later, but these are things I'm looking for when I'm trying to get oriented to a new file. And then once I see what's going on, I'll zoom back in. Now back to the status bar in the bottom right corner, there is a plus button. And I can click that plus button as many times as I want until I hit 400% magnification. That's where the plus button maxes out by default. So if I keep clicking the plus button, I'm zooming in more and more and more until it finally says that's enough, Barb. And for sure, 400% magnification is big enough for most people. But let's say that you want to magnify more than that. You can do so. The magnification range in FrameMaker is from 25% magnification to 1600% magnification. Pick any number within that range and type it in this box. And then you can press enter and zoom in. So for example, I'll just type in randomly 1205% magnification, so 1205. When I press enter, that's exactly what happens. I magnify to 1205% magnification. I've never felt the need to magnify that much unless I'm teaching how the magnification commands work. Now, this is not just a text box I can type in, it's also a menu. So if I click the triangle on the right-hand side, a menu opens up, and one of the commands I use all the time is fit page and window. In my workflow, I want to zoom in, see what I'm doing, and then zoom back out and see how that impacts the page. So this fit page and window command becomes a really important one for me to zoom all the way back out so I can see the entire page. A quick note on the page, my page is appearing on the right-hand side because this is a right-hand page in a double-sided document. If I scroll down, you can see that FrameMaker is showing me left and right-hand pages, but page 1 is appearing on the right because, as I said, it's a right-hand page. Now, what FrameMaker is going to do, if I begin to zoom in or begin to show more of the interface, if it decides it can't fit the right-hand page on the right, it will automatically, seamlessly move to a single-page view, and I'll show you that by zooming in. As I click the plus button just once, it no longer can fit 2 pages on screen, so it's now showing me my pages as a single page view. I'll go back to fit page and window again, and it's going to put my page back on the right. That happens all the time in FrameMaker to the point where I don't notice it at all anymore. I just look for my text, do my work, and keep on going. If you're a new user, that's going to surprise you a little bit at the beginning, and then you'll become used to it as well. Now, to be able to actually use FrameMaker, I need some more interface to work with. FrameMaker will offer me 9 toolbars that are not on screen right now and about 30 panels. I've never actually counted how many panels we have, but there's around 30 plus or minus a couple. And I can access the panels individually from the menus. I can go to a menu, for example. I can go to the view menu and click on panels, and I can choose a specific panel that I want. Or I can access the panels via the workspaces that come with the software. For example, in the top right corner, this is the workspace list. Right now I've got the blank workspace loaded because I wanted to start with a clean interface as we started to talk. But when you install FrameMaker for the very first time, you're going to be looking at the authoring workspace. And the authoring workspace is one that's going to open up one toolbar across the top and a group of panels on the right that are specifically meant for somebody who is authoring or writing in FrameMaker. They're going to open up a document and begin to type in the content. And what's listed prominently in the authoring workspace is the paragraph catalog, which is really important because this is where your paragraph styles live. So here's me coming back on paragraph styles. If I put my cursor on line number 1, and I can just click it once, but it's hard to see a blinking cursor when you're watching my screen, so I'm highlighting a little bit to get your attention. But if I put my cursor up on line 1, and I come over here, I can see this is a heading 0, which is my top level heading for this document. If I click on heading 1, that's my second level heading, you can see how the entire paragraph reformats and now looks like the other heading 1. I could click on heading 2 or heading 3 or perhaps bullet level 1 or bullet level 2. Or I could put it back where it was, heading 0. And you can see my paragraph styles at work. I'm clicking on those short descriptive names, and when I do, FrameMaker is locating the beginning and the end of the entire paragraph, and it's applying the definition that goes with that paragraph style. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go, but that's how that works. Now, if I'm thinking that I don't like what a paragraph style looks like and I want to modify it, I can do that through the paragraph designer. But unfortunately, in the authoring workspace, the designer is not available. So what I'm going to do is change workspaces again. I'm going to my workspace list and I'm going to come down to the design workspace. This is a completely different workspace. This is one meant for somebody who is designing an InDesign document from scratch. Now I forgot to reset my workspace, so I am catching up there. Ignore that little bit. So this workspace is meant for somebody who is designing a document from scratch, and that's actually how I prefer to work. I typically design templates for clients and for the jobs I'm working on. So I'll often use the design workspace as a starting point. And if I want to change something, like maybe I want these headings down here to be blue, there's two of them. There's one on line 10 and one on line 14. I can go to the paragraph designer and I can go look at these 8 different categories and figure out what it is I want to change. I'm thinking I want to change the color, and the color is in font properties. So I'll click on font properties. I'm going to change my color from black to corporate color primary, which is the blue I'm using elsewhere in the document. And I'm going to update my paragraph style. Now watch what happens when I do that on my page. FrameMaker will locate and update all the paragraphs using definition term. There were 2 on this page, one on line 10 and one on line 14. By updating the definition, it's not my job to locate all those paragraphs and change them. It's FrameMaker's job. And this is how we manage our really long documents. We're not trying to do things one at a time. As humans, we are going to make mistakes and we're going to forget things. But if you assign a style to FrameMaker and then you redefine that style and update the style, FrameMaker's job is to locate and update every single occurrence of that style for you, which is awesome. Okay, now in my life, I want to have the designers open and the catalogs. And so one of the best features about these workspaces is that you can customize these workspaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the top of my designers, and in the top right corner, right above paragraph designer, there's a pair of double arrows, double black arrows. If I click them and click them again and click them again, I'm expanding and collapsing the panels. And when I collapse the panels, I get a little bit more screen space. My page went back to the right again. And now I can still access my paragraph designer when I want to use it, but it's not taking up so much room. I click to open a panel and I click to close it. Now I'm going to drag the paragraph designer panel to the very top of this group. I just prefer to have them in this order: paragraph, character, table. That's my preference, doesn't need to be yours. But I also want to have my paragraph catalog up on screen. So if I want to add additional panels to my group, I can go to the View menu and I can come down to Panels. And I can pick any panel I want. Many of the panels are going to be in this list, but some of the panels are in the other menus individually. You have to know where to look for them. So I'm looking for the paragraph catalog. Here it is. When I click it, the paragraph catalog is going to open up and it's going to dock itself in the panel group on the right. If I like it there, I'm good to go. I can collapse it when I'm not using it. I can click to use it. I can click to close it. But I prefer to keep the catalog visible while I'm working because I'm using it all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undock it by simply dragging it out and dropping it on the page. There's an X to close it. If I really didn't want it, I could close it again, but I do want it. And I also want to open it up so I can see what it does. And there are those double black arrows a second time. I'm going to go ahead and click the double black arrows and open up the paragraph catalog. And then I'm going to decide where I want to put it. I have lots of options. All of them are guided by a blue line that tells me what's about to happen. And keep an eye out for the blue as I drag it. I'm going to grab the words paragraph catalog and I'm going to drag them underneath condition tags. Can you see that blue line that appears when I get close to condition tags? That's telling me if I let go now, I'm going to dock this in its own group under condition tags. I'll let go and that's where it goes. And I'm going to undock it again. This time I'm going to drag it to the right side of the group and the blue line appears. Hard to get it. There it is. The blue line appears on the far right side of my screen. If I let go now, it's going to dock on the right side. I can let go and undock it. And this time, perhaps I try to put it in one of the groups. I can put it in here, and that blue line says it's going to go in this group between variables and condition tags. I can put any of these panels anywhere I want. That's the point. I can also dock them on the far left if I want to, and I do that sometimes in production. When I'm using a second screen, I find them closer to my cursor. If I have them on this side, less work. And so I can dock them on that far side. I'm just watching for the blue highlight indicator to know where it's going to go. Now here's where I'm going to put it for this class. I'm going to take the catalog out one more time. This time I'm going to drop it as its own column on the left side of the other panels, looking for the blue bar. And once I get it, I'm going to open it up. And then I can make it narrower because there's an awful lot of empty space, like that. And that gives you a sense of how you can set up a custom workspace. Now, when I was first learning about workspaces, and this was years ago when workspaces were new and all these programs, somebody compared them to socks. And yes, I'm talking about socks that go on your feet. Here was what I read. The person that was describing the importance of workspaces talked about what happens when you take your socks out of the dryer. If you take your socks out of the dryer and you put them away, you're going to put them in your sock drawer. When you're late for work, you open up your sock drawer, you grab the socks that match your outfit, you put them on your feet, and you run out the door. But if somebody is visiting you and they put your socks away, who knows where they put them? They could be anywhere. And when you're looking for your socks, opening and closing every single drawer, getting increasingly agitated because you can't find your socks and you're getting later by the minute, you're going to get frustrated. And so they said, this is not my thought, but I read this, that setting up a workspace and putting things in the same place every time is like knowing where your socks are. If you always have your panels in the exact same spot where you like them, wherever that is that you like them, not where I like them, but where you like them, you can always find them. I'm going to show you a couple more custom workspaces, but there's an observation I'd like you to make. My designers are always in the top corner up here. And that's because I need to know exactly where they are so that I can find them. And if I'm working and I'm thinking, I got to go to the paragraph designer, my mouse will start moving across the screen before I've even turned my head to look over there because it's always in that location. I know I always have the paragraph designer, then the character designer, then the table designer. I'm pretty consistent with the other ones as well as I add more panels. I have a plan about how I like things. But again, it doesn't matter how I like to organize. It matters how you like to organize. Getting organized is going to help you. So when you buy FrameMaker, you get 5 default workspaces. The authoring workspace, the blank workspace, the design workspace. I've talked about those. There's also one for managing graphics and for document review. But I've saved 3 additional workspaces, and these workspaces will appear above authoring. The first one is called production. When I'm in a production environment, I use my production workspace. It's a little bit intimidating. I don't need that open. It's a little bit intimidating because it has a lot of panels over on the right-hand side. But again, look, paragraph, character, table designer, they're always my first 3. I like to keep my catalogs on the left because on a big screen, that's less mouse movement for me. And I also have a bunch of toolbars that have appeared on screen that I use on a regular basis. I have a workspace that I use when I'm teaching my advanced FrameMaker class. This one's called Design and Layout. It's a simpler workspace than my production layout workspace. It has the same toolbars at the top and the left that the production workspace does. The catalogs are back on the right-hand side, and then I have fewer panels, but these are the ones that I'm teaching in an advanced class. So I have these panels open for my students as we begin to talk about the features. And then for this class, an introduction to Adobe FrameMaker, I have an even simpler workspace. It's a variation on those two, just less panels. If you glance up at my toolbars, I only have 2 toolbars across the top and 1 on the left, and then I have fewer panels on the right. Again, my best tip for you about customizing your interface for any level FrameMaker student, FrameMaker user, is to sit and think about your workflow. What panels do you use every single day? What panels do you never use? If there's a panel you don't need, you can always take it out and close it, and it's not going to be there anymore. Once you create the panel groupings that you like, you can save them. And you save your workspaces in the workspace list by choosing Save Workspace. Now, I want my object properties to be open, and I just closed it, so I'm going to reset my workspace. When I click Reset Workspace and I pick OK, FrameMaker is going to bring back my object properties and put it over here on the right. Oh, it also closed my toolbar on the far left, because this is how I saved it last time. Okay, so that's workspaces. I recommend you set one up, save it. You can have one workspace, you can have many workspaces, just up to you. Some people work with a workspace per job because the job descriptions are different. Now I want to focus your attention on the page itself. So let's talk about what's going on in a basic FrameMaker document. When you look at a page for the first time, your eye is typically drawn to the text because that's what you're here to read. When someone is picking up your documentation, they need to read the content that you provided for them. And so the text becomes the initial focal point. Somebody has to write this text, and then somebody has to format it. And as I've already said twice now, formatting is handled with paragraph styles. So you pick a paragraph and you decide, okay, this particular paragraph's function in the document is the top level heading. You assign the styles through the catalog. If you change your mind, decide this is a second level heading, you can click on the style that does that for you, or you could put it back to the top level heading again. That's paragraph styles. If you don't like what a paragraph style looks like, you modify this list through the paragraph designer. Those two work hand in hand, the paragraph catalog and the paragraph designer, to set up your paragraphs. I set my paragraphs up first. But there are going to be times when you want to emphasize text within a paragraph. For example, on line 2, I have this text that says general background information. That's both blue and bold. It's happening again on line 11. If you want to highlight text within a paragraph, you can do that, but not with the paragraph catalog. Let me show you. Let's say I want to highlight these two words right here. Aircraft, engine, those are important for some reason. If I come over here to my paragraph catalog and I click on, let's say, heading 1, the entire paragraph is going to change to a heading 1 because that's the job of the paragraph designer. The FrameMaker knows where a paragraph starts and ends. You do not have to tell it. You do not have to highlight an entire paragraph. I just have those two words selected. If you just click on a paragraph and click on a paragraph style, FrameMaker assigns the paragraph style to the entire paragraph. Now I'm going to hit undo and take it off. So how do I emphasize those words? Well, that's the character catalog, and I have that sitting next on my screen. The character catalog is going to highlight text selected within a paragraph. I do this second because I want my paragraph style set up first, and then I figure out what I need to emphasize. So if I come down here and I want to bold that text, I can come down and choose emphasis heavy, and that's the same character style that I'm using up here. And it's going to only apply that to the text I select. Now, a quick note for those of you who are coming here from Microsoft Word. People often come to FrameMaker from Microsoft Word because they've outgrown Word. It's not working for them any longer. The styles are confusing to me in Microsoft Word because you can assign a style to an entire paragraph, and that's considered a paragraph style, or you can assign a style to selected text, and that's considered a character style. They can go either way. It's very gray. That's not true in FrameMaker. In FrameMaker, they are very specific features. Paragraph styles are the entire paragraph. Character styles are what you select within a partial paragraph. And there's no good reason to assign a character style to a partial paragraph. It's only going to get you into trouble. Don't do it. Now, if you're thinking that you don't want these words to be blue, maybe you want to make these words black again, aircraft engine, general background information, and rotating motions, we can do that by editing the character style. And that happens in the character designer. So if I open up my character designer and I choose the style I want to modify, which is emphasis heavy, I can then drop the menu down and I can pick, let's say I want to use orange. Here's an orange right here. And I update the style. Watch my screen, lines 2, 7, and 11. All that text becomes orange because I just changed the style definition. And again, I don't have to track down all the occurrences. That's FrameMaker's job. My job is to assign the styles. Once they're assigned, if my client says, hey, Barb, you chose orange to highlight. What were you thinking? Can you put it back to blue? Yes, I certainly can. I can just pick the style I want to modify and change the color back to the blue color I was using, and I can click Update Style. I've done something wrong. Let me try that again. Hold on. I need to, am I in the, yep, cursor's in the right spot. I just need to drop down and choose my blue and then Update Style. I must have an override in there, so I'm going to remove my overrides. Okay, I didn't want to talk about overrides, but I made some mistake in there, and I produced them. So let me just say very briefly, and we can talk more about this after class is over if you have a question. In FrameMaker, when you're working with your styles, you can either update a style definition, that updates all of them, or you can click Apply and update just one. I must have clicked Apply because I only had one that was changed. Don't know when I did it, don't remember doing it, but I've done something wrong. In my work, I do not work with overrides. I do not believe in overrides. So whenever I see that message, I always remove overrides. That's a scary proposition if I'm working with somebody else's document because I do not know how well they know FrameMaker and if they know they shouldn't be using overrides. I could theoretically remove all the formatting in a document if I say remove overrides. So you got to be careful if you're in a new document that you don't know very well. But when I'm working, I don't use overrides. I always remove them because I did it by accident. Okay, that was unintentional, but we can learn from that. It was a learning opportunity. Okay, so we've talked about how the text is being handled with paragraph styles. We've talked about character styles. Let me show you on the last page of this document that there is a table. And we'll add this table in a little bit later. I'll talk more about tables at that point. But I just want to point out that we can format this table with styles. I have the table catalog sitting at the bottom of my catalog group. And this particular document has exactly 2 table styles. Some will have one, some will have lots more. It just depends on your document and who's set things up and what's been set up. But if I click on table shaded, it's going to shade my table. If I click it back on table bordered, it will put the borders on the table. Once these styles are set up, it's that easy to assign them. If you have 25 tables in a document and someone says, you know, I don't really like the blue color you have for the borders, we could go to the table designer. There's a designer for the tables, and we can modify the colors, the ruling colors, the shading colors, etc. Update style updates all of the tables in that document. FrameMaker is meant for long document layout. It's what it does best. It has all sorts of features to help make sure we don't lose our minds and our weekends when we're doing our document layout. You definitely want to learn FrameMaker enough that it's working for you and automating as much as possible. That's always my goal when I'm designing a template. How much can I make FrameMaker do for me, and how little can I do to get the job out the door? It's a lot that we can put on FrameMaker. Okay, so that's tables. And then I'm going to go to page 2 because on page 2 there's an image. And we will certainly see images in FrameMaker as well, images that complement whatever's being talked about. This document is about personal spaceship, so here's our personal spaceship sketch. And both tables and graphics should be anchored to the text. Here's what that means. If I put my cursor up here at the end of line 33 and begin to press the Enter key, enter, 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 I am adding content above this graphic. I'm pushing this content down, and because the graphic is anchored to the space right here, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit, it's going to push the graphic down. That same movement has also moved the table down. It's gone to the next page. So you can move these around. Again, I'll do it here as well. You can see it moving down. Those are anchored. Now I'm going to undo those commands, undo that, and put them back. Okay, so I'll show you how to add an image in a few minutes as well. Now the last thing I want to talk about are the pages. Starting with just the layout of this particular document, I'm going to click the minus button here to zoom out so you can see 2 pages side by side. I know they're a little small, but just look at the overall layout. This particular document is 8.5 inches by 11 inches, portrait page. It has about 1-inch margins top and bottom, a little bit less on the left and the right on all these pages. It's basically using a one column format. And I say basically because there is a narrow column on the left-hand side, but it's not a newspaper column. FrameMaker can support between 1 and 30 columns in a document. 30. Who's going to want 30? Nobody. I only have one client that uses a 2-column format because in technical document layout, multiple columns complicate the positioning of your tables and your graphics. It just becomes more difficult to handle. Most technical documents are a single column. The problem with a single column layout, however, is your page can get really dense. You've got a technical topic that you're writing about that people probably already don't want to read, but they have to for their jobs. And then if you fill the page up with text, it just looks really dark and dense, and people are going to try to postpone reading it. So you want to introduce white space into your layout. I know this is tricky. You're trying to learn FrameMaker and then you have to learn design too. I know, it's a lot. But you want to add white space into your layout. And you can see there's a lot of spacing between these paragraphs. They're not tight up against each other, just so the page looks less threatening. And then this narrow column over here is used to add additional white space. And I want to show you how that works. So if I choose this paragraph right here, congratulations on your purchase. This particular paragraph is in the main column. It's sitting on the right side in the main column, as are most of the paragraphs in this document. But the heading above it is called a straddle paragraph because it's straddling the side head column and the main column. So is this one down here. This is another straddle paragraph. It's straddling the main and the side head column. And so that gives more white space there, which is great. But you can also put things that are entirely in the side head column. This document has 2 styles that will do that, so I'm going to go show them to you. This paragraph right here is currently sitting above the words, the vehicle has 3 primary elements. So there's 2 paragraphs right now above the spaceship. If I come over here and I assign the style called note, that paragraph is going to fit itself to the left of the spaceship and the paragraph above it, entirely in the side head column. There's another one that does that in this document. It's called tip, and that also sits entirely in the side head column. Now, if I put that back to body begin, it's going to go back above the paragraph and below the subhead. That's where it landed naturally. But because I have a side head format defined, I can put a paragraph entirely in the side head or entirely in the main column or straddle both. That side head feature is something that is unique to FrameMaker. Try doing that in Word or InDesign without a table and without trying to lose your mind. It just doesn't work. FrameMaker makes this really easy, and I definitely recommend you take advantage of it to add the white space to your document. Okay, so that's one thing I want to say about the pages, but I also want to say that this document has running heads. It has page numbers at the top, followed by a line, both sides, and also it has lines at the bottom and it has footers. And the footers are special in that they are collecting content from the page. So my title says general description. That's what this footer says, general description. And then the heading says the long history of flight, and that's what my footer says as well. Not because I typed that content in, but because FrameMaker is actually gathering that content off of the page. If I were to come in here and delete the long history, now watch my footer down here. I'm going to delete those words, and then I'm going to refresh my screen, and now the words have disappeared from the footer because FrameMaker is using variables to collect that information. That should be in any template because, again, you don't want to do any extra work. Shift the burden onto FrameMaker. FrameMaker is really good at this. Let it do it for you. Now, how does that work? It happens on the master pages. So FrameMaker supports 3 types of pages. The body pages are what we've been on this entire time. This document has 8 body pages. The content on the body pages changes from page 1 to page 2 to page 3 to page 4. People pick up your document to read the content on your body pages. When you have repeating information like the running heads, that goes on the master pages. Anything you type on a master page will appear in that location on all of the body pages. Now again, I'm zooming out a little bit. I know it's small, but you can see that I have 2 master pages in this document. I have a left and I have a right. If I type my name, and I'm just typing in Barb, B-A-R-B, on the right master in the header frame, and I go back to my body pages, you can see my name now appears at the top of all the right-hand pages, not the left-hand pages. I didn't put it on the left-hand pages. I put it on the right-hand pages. So as I go back to the View menu and look at the master pages again, the master pages are going to have 4 background frames, one for the left page header, one for the right page header, one for the left page footer, one for the right page footer. You can add content in there for the headers and the footers. You can also add graphics if you want to, and you can change the size and position of these frames. They're very customizable. You'll also notice the template frames in the middle. They're just there to tell you where the text is going to go in the body pages. Adding text to them doesn't do anything. Okay, so body pages hold the content, master pages hold the repeating information, and the reference pages are the third kind of pages. I'm simply going to tell you that they exist and not much more about them in this class. I will address them in the other webinars. As a matter of fact, one of my objectives in one of the webinars is to demystify reference pages, because I know from teaching students for 30 years that a lot of students are afraid of reference pages. They seem really scary to them and they just don't want to talk about them, don't want to look at them, which is a mistake because we need them to accomplish our advanced features. So here's my take on reference pages. Reference pages hold content that either you want to refer to or FrameMaker wants to refer to. Here's an example of a note to a future designer. This is a note that explains how buttons are used in this file. This doesn't appear anywhere in the document. This is just explaining how to use the feature, how to add, and shows the commands you can use. That's a note that's never going to print because it's on a reference page. The reader never sees the reference pages. Only someone in FrameMaker who navigates to them can see this note. But I can leave notes to myself to remind me how I succeeded with something that was really hard for me. So I don't have to think about it next time. I can just go look and see, oh, that's what you did last time. Read it and then do it again. But FrameMaker also holds things that it needs to refer to. For example, these blocks up here, there's a red and a yellow block. These are being called in by a paragraph on the body pages, and I'll show you that in just a second. They live here, and then FrameMaker is going to get them from the reference page and use them on the body pages. So again, my summary on reference pages is they hold things that either you need to refer to or FrameMaker needs to refer to. And with that, I'm going to go back to the body pages. I want to get myself to the page that has the yellow, which is right here. So this particular paragraph is a caution paragraph, and it's got a yellow background to help it stand out so people see it's a caution. There is a yellow bar at the top and the bottom to add some padding behind the yellow box that's also behind it. So if I go over here and I click on Body Begin, this is just a regular body paragraph. Now, it doesn't say caution. It doesn't have any of the colors. When I come back over here and I assign caution, it's grabbing the yellow bar I just showed you from the reference page and putting it at the top and at the bottom of this paragraph. That's what it's doing. Okay, so that's a look at a basic FrameMaker document. Let's now figure out how we can create a new file ourselves. I'm going to begin by creating a new document from the welcome screen. And I want to say that there are 3 ways to make a new document. I'm going to cover each of the 3. The first one is to create a new blank document. If you click Portrait or Landscape or Custom, you're going to get a blank page. I'm just going to click on Portrait, and FrameMaker says, okay, here you go, Barb. Here is a 1-page document, 1 column, 1-inch margins on all 4 sides. And if you look at my paragraph styles over here on the right, I have what I call the starter set of paragraph styles. Not much going on here until I know how to manipulate this list, which happens through the paragraph designer. But even as a new user, if I don't even know what I'm doing, I could start typing in content, general information. Do I have a space in there? I do. And I can click on title and it becomes a title. So I don't have to know very much about it. Now, if I want to make that title look different, then I will need to learn how to use that paragraph designer. But I can start setting up my paragraphs, and I can come along and say, you know, I think that should be a heading 1 or that should be a heading 2. And I'm assigning those paragraph styles to my text as I'm typing. Now, a quick note on how to modify a paragraph style. That happens, as I said, in the paragraph designer. I know I changed the color before. Let's say this time I want to change the type size. I could come in here to the size and pick maybe size 36. Come into the color, I could pick perhaps forest green. And when I update my style, watch general information, accept those changes. And anytime I assign a title style to this, anything in this document, it's going to look like that because I've redefined what that style looks like. So that's one way to approach it. Start with a new document and just begin from scratch. That's actually where I prefer to start because I like to design my documents from scratch. So that's my start. But that's intimidating for a new user. So what else can you do? Let's go to the welcome screen and let's go to the standard templates button here. I'm going to go ahead and click on standard template, and that's going to open up a dialog box that will allow me access to templates that come free with FrameMaker. These are included with your software. Everyone has access to these. Everyone can use them for the documentation. They are free. If you like them, you can use them. You can use them exactly as they are, or you can use them as a basis for a template, and you can tweak them to look the way you want them to. Now, there are 4 pages of templates. I'm going to use one from the first page. Specifically, I'm in the user guide group, and I'm going to pick the chapter template. The middle column describes what it looks like, and the right side shows me what it's going to look like. If I'm unclear if I want to use it or not, I'm still deciding, I would probably click Show Sample, which would create a template with dummy text in there, so I can see, well, what font is it using? What style? What's the spacing look like? What are the colors? How are tables handled? What about graphics? But if I know I want to use this template, I would just use Create, which is going to give me a new blank page, and I can just start typing. So as I click Create, that's exactly what happens. I'm going to press the Enter key, and I'm again going to type in General Information, Enter blah, 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 blah. And I'm now using one of the templates that comes with the software. If you like the template, you can use it just like it is. You don't need to change anything. If you don't have the right styles assigned, you can always come over here and assign a different style. The paragraph styles are included in all these templates. There are character styles. There are table catalog styles. It's fully formatted. These templates are fully formatted. You can use them as they are. But what happens with most of my students, most of them, is they are typically new hires. When they come to my intro classes, they're new hires in a department that has not yet been using FrameMaker. Or sorry, the department's been using FrameMaker. They are not yet using FrameMaker. So they're walking into a situation where FrameMaker is in use, but they don't know FrameMaker. That's most of my students. I would say 90% of my students are in that situation. And in that situation, if you're not the very, very first FrameMaker user in your office, I guarantee you have templates waiting for you. It's not just the ones that come with the software, but you're going to have templates that have been customized specifically for your work. And that's how most people are working. So I want to show you that as well. I have a template that I created, and I based it on the one you're looking at right here. I decided this template was too complicated because it has 3 threaded frames on the first page. And that seemed like too much to try to discuss in my hour and 15 minutes. I could spend half an hour talking about this first page. So I just simplified it. I removed these 2 frames, made this frame taller, and I just changed the color. For some reason, I didn't like this blue. I picked a teal. But otherwise, it's the exact same template. So when I go over to this template, you're thinking, no, it's not. It looks really different. I based it on that template and just made the few changes that I talked about. I also simplified the headers and the footers. So I guess I made a few more changes, but not many. I spent 5 minutes on it just to simplify it. So this now is going to be a pretend custom template that has been created for your office. And you can start from here. Now, the 3 ways to create a new document would be a new blank page, start from a FrameMaker template that comes with the software, start with your office's template. And then you need to add content. And there's 3 ways to do that. Choice number 1, again, just start typing. If the content exists in your head and not anyplace else, should have found something easier to type. You just start typing and you begin formatting. And you can apply styles as you need to from your catalog. That's one way to go. Another way to go, if the content exists someplace else, is to copy and paste it. So I'm going to select this text, and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go over to a document I have called text. It just has very plain text, unformatted text. I'm going to click inside the story. I'm going to go to the edit menu and select all in flow. Control A, shortcut if I want to use a shortcut later. Select all. I'm going to copy it, go to my template, click inside, and then I'm going to paste it. And now the content is in FrameMaker. However, it's not formatted. Now, mathematically, most of these paragraphs should be body paragraphs. So I'm going to go ahead and select all. I use Control A that time. And I'm going to choose body content, which is the style used most often in this document. When I go back to page 1, it's then my job to start assigning the other styles. General description is not a body paragraph. General description is a top-level heading. This next paragraph we see here has an indent. And here's another subtle thing about page layout. We don't need to indent the first paragraph after a heading because it's clearly a new paragraph. We indent second and subsequent paragraphs to let somebody know that those are new paragraphs. But first paragraphs don't get indents. So I've got a style here that's called body begin that removes the indent. I'm then going to select these 3 items and tell them to be a bullet level 1. This is going to be a definition term. This is a description. This is a term. This is a description. This is a heading 1. And this does not need to have an indent, so I'm going to go ahead and choose body begin again. And notice how there's no indent on the first paragraph because it's following a heading. Clearly it's a new paragraph, but the indents indicate that the other paragraphs are new paragraphs. That's just a design technique. You'll pick up design when you're ready. Now, as you watch me do that, you can see why I keep my catalogs open. There's a lot of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as I'm assigning styles. And a question that my students ask me all the time is, can't FrameMaker assign the styles for you? And the answer is going to be no, because FrameMaker can't read. It can't figure out, well, this should be a heading 1 and that should be a heading 2 based on where it appears. And it can't read your mind. So you can be looking at a paragraph thinking, that's the heading 1. It doesn't hear you, so it doesn't know that. Someone has to assign the styles. It has to happen. So the styles have to get assigned at some point. You can do it while you're typing. You can do it after the text is in there. But there is one way that you can shift the burden to somebody else if you would like someone else to assign the styles for you. And that's if you're using a Word to FrameMaker workflow. And that's what I do in my life. I don't type my content very often. I primarily am hired for layout. And so somebody's going to give me a bunch of Word documents along with a bunch of graphics and a bunch of Excel tables. And they'll say, okay, put these into FrameMaker. And off you go. So in that situation, you can assign styles in Word. I'm going to select all, I'm going to press delete, and I'm going to go back to Word for a second. And here's a Word document that has styles in it. Now, I poll my users all the time. I would say 50% of my students, for any class, don't know that Word offers styles. These big white boxes up here are on the main ribbon, and they have never noticed them. Don't know how that works, but it does. So what I'm going to do is open up the Styles panel. That's that little button right here. And I'll pull my Styles panel in Word over to the side. There we go. And then I can assign styles. I can say, okay, this is going to be a title. This is going to be a normal paragraph, which is the default style. These are going to be list paragraphs. These are going to be heading 2s. This is going to be a heading 1, etc. The person who's writing the content can be assigning styles for you in advance. And they'll probably get them right because it's their content and they care. So they'll probably come in correctly. If I have someone who's doing this for me for the first time, I have to work them a little bit to make sure they know how to assign the styles. But once we get past that, it works great. If somebody's willing to assign the styles for me, then I can go to FrameMaker and I can simply import the content. So here's what I'm going to do now. Okay, here I go. Sorry, I got caught. I don't know where I'm doing down there. I got caught up in some. There we go. Got it. Don't know what just happened there. Okay, we're good. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to choose Import File. File, Import File. This is how we import content from other applications into FrameMaker. Now I've got a Word document in my Assets folder, so I'm opening it up. It's a docx file, picking up the Word document. And when you are importing through File, Import File, you either import by reference, which means link, or you copy into document. You want to copy this into the document. You don't want to link your text, or you can't edit it in FrameMaker. You always want to copy text. Text would be Word documents and Excel spreadsheet files. Copy that. I'm going to pick Import. And FrameMaker says, is this a Word 2016 file? The answer is it is, yes. So I'll click Convert. And this mapping dialog box opens up. Now to save time, I've already done the mapping, but let me explain to you how it works. In the left column, these are the styles that you saw in Microsoft Word. They were in that listing in the Styles panel in Word. Title, normal, list paragraph. On the right, I am mapping these to the equivalent FrameMaker feature. So for example, the title should be my top level heading, which is heading 0. I just scroll through my catalog, find it, and click it. Normal should map to body content. I scroll through, find it, and click it. I just work through the list. I can save this list and use it again and again for repetitive jobs. I can do this just one time with a particular client. Now, once that list has been mapped, I can pick OK. The content comes in fully formatted. I did not have to assign the styles. The writer assigned the styles in Word. FrameMaker can read those styles, and you can tell them to map to the equivalent FrameMaker file. That's a huge time saver if you've got people that can do that kind of work with you. If I'm doing a one-off job with somebody, I don't even bring it up, but I've got clients I've had for 25 years, work with regularly. They know me, I know them, I give them a Word template, they type into the template. It's great. Okay, so 3 ways to bring text in. You can type it, you can copy and paste it, or you can import it and import by copy so that you can also edit it here. This is editable text. All right, so now I'm going to switch to my working document, which looks just like this on page 1. We've already talked about it, and I want to just talk about some other things in here. First off, I want to just address the lists for a moment. There are a lot of numbering, let me say that again. There are a lot of lists in this document. Sorry, there are a lot of lists in this document. And when people think of lists, they tend to think of things like bullet lists and numbered lists. So here's a bullet list right here on my screen. I'm going to go ahead and open up the paragraph designer while I'm talking. So I'm going to undock it and drag it over and put it nearby just so I can refer to it from time to time. The paragraph designer has 8 different categories for formatting. Lists are always handled through the numbering category, so I'm in the numbering category here. This is a very simple list. It just has a bullet, and we set bullet lists up through numbering properties. You can see that my numbering format is a bullet, and that \T represents a tab. So that's set up right here. If I pop over and assign a bullet level 2, you'll see that I have a hyphen on that item, and there's a hyphen in the auto number format. So we use auto numbering for bullet lists like this. But these lists can become more complex. Maybe you want to have a numbered list. And so I've got a style here with a numbered list where it numbers it with 1, 2, 3, although I forgot to highlight, so let's try that again. Continue, 1, 2, 3. And now it's numbering sequential numbers. Now, let's talk about how this is set up for just a second. Let me think about Word again, because I know a lot of you are going to be coming from Word or you know Word well. Word, I think, makes it fairly easy to set up your nested lists because it has buttons. And as long as things match, it's great. You can click a button and off you go. And I know how to use word lists. I've had to learn for some jobs. But I can break those lists in 30 seconds flat. And then I've got to figure out, what did I do? How am I going to fix this? How do I put it back? It's a bit of a nightmare for me. And part of it's my knowledge of Word, but part of it's Word. FrameMaker requires a little bit more understanding about how to set your lists up, but once you get the logic figured out, they are bulletproof. You cannot break those lists once you get that figured out. If you're going back to a template in your office, they're done. The lists are figured out. You just assign the name and they work, and you think, wow, that's magic. If you're the first FrameMaker user in your office, well, then you're going to have to learn how to do this. I can help you. We can help you on the forums. There's lots of ways to go to learn how to set the numbers up. It definitely takes a little bit more thought in advance. Sometimes I have to sketch it out, actually, to figure out how I want to number things, because it can be a little complicated with the logic that I can't always keep in my head. But once it's figured out, it always works. Again, they're bulletproof once they work. Anyway, so FrameMaker uses building blocks. This is the n plus counter here. The n plus counter, which is used in numbered lists, starts with a value of 0 in a flow. For flow A, the value is 0. And the n plus counter looks at the current value, 0, adds 1 to it. This is the first n plus in the document, so 0 plus 1 is 1. This is the second n plus 1 is 2. Third one would be 3. That counter is simply incrementing. And if you can see this, there's also an L colon in front of those numbers. That's called a series label. That's separating this numbered series from other numbered series, because guess what? This is also a numbered list down here. But they're not getting confused because they're in different series. So little time to ramp up to this, but once they're working, they are the best. And you can also include words in here. If I come over here and I come down to my steps, I'm going to go ahead and choose step. I have the word step appear and then the numbers. These are extremely flexible. You can do just about anything you want. As a matter of fact, I can say to you with complete honesty, I've never had to look at a FrameMaker student and say, oh, you can't number like that in FrameMaker. Whatever they've presented to me over the 30 years, and I've seen everything at this point, you can do it in FrameMaker. Unless it's non-sequential, in which case you're going to have to do some things to make that work. But as long as we're talking about any kind of sequential numbering, any mixing and matching of numbering, you can do it in FrameMaker. Okay, so looking again up here, this is another numbered list. This is using the chapnum building block because it's a chapter number. As I come down to history of flight, that first one is using the chapnum, and then there's an n plus, which is the second one. That 0.1 is the one. And as I scroll down, you'll notice that it comes to a 2 because that's the second n plus in that particular style. This one has a 3 level. It has the chapter num, it's holding the previous level, and it's incrementing the third level. This document even has a 4th level in here. There it is. It goes chapter number, hold, increment. So they're all set up with just a click. These will occur, which is great. Now, what might surprise you is that the caution is another numbered list thing. But rather than having numbers, it has the word caution. Again, if you see me click this back on body begin, the word caution was never typed in. It's part of the paragraph style, and that word was added to the list. So if I pop over here and say, hey, you're a caution, not only does it get the yellow, it also puts the word caution in there, sets a tab, and has an indent. If I click on danger, it changes the word to danger because danger is in that numbered list. If I click on note, it puts the word note in front. If I click on tip, it puts the word tip in front because all that's part of those numbered lists. This is incredibly powerful. One of the strong features in FrameMaker. One that you have to ramp up on, but once you get there, you're going to love it. Okay. Now from there, I'd like to talk about tables. And I want to add a table to the end of the document right here. Okay, so you can insert a table yourself that's in your head just by going to the table menu, choosing insert table and starting to type. But I already have a table typed in because that represents my workflow. People give me the content. I have to format it. So they'll give me tables typically as Excel. They also could be embedded in a Word file, and those come in with the Word files when you import the Word documents. But I've got an Excel file. So I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to pick Import File. File, Import File. I have an Excel file in my Assets folder. And it's an XLSX file. I'm going to copy into the document because it is text. I want to be able to edit it in FrameMaker. And I'm going to pick Import. FrameMaker is going to ask me if it's an Excel file. Yes, it is. It's going to ask me where I want it to go. I want it to go in Flow A, the main flow. I want to remove any formatting overrides that might be in there. I don't know. And then I'll pick Import. So it comes in as a very clean, plain table. Now, my paragraph designer, I don't need anymore. I'm going to go ahead and just reset my workspace, and that's going to put it back for me to the top of the group over here. So you can watch it appear where I'm pointing. There you go. Okay, so now I can focus on my table. All right, I'm going to click on my table, And I realized I need to make this look a little bit better. So how about if I select the content, and then I'm going to choose Control A for Select All in Table, and I'm going to assign the paragraph style called Cell Body to all that text. And then I'm going to click on Table Bordered to give it the basic formatting that I want. Now, I want to show you what happens when a table breaks across pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force that table to break across pages by adding a couple of extra returns up here. Before I do that, let me point out that this symbol that you're looking at right here is called an anchor. We have two kinds of anchors in FrameMaker. We have table anchors and we have frame anchors. Anchors mean that the anchored object, in this case the table, will move with my edits. So as I begin to press the Enter key up here, enter, 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 and by the way, look at my list just incrementing happily away because it's set up to do that. Another return or so, let's do that. It's pushing the text down, it pushes the anchor down, it pushes the table down. And now my table is in fact breaking across pages, which is something I wanted to talk about. Okay, so let me now get started on this. This is the title of the document, and it's in the table because the Excel person put it in the table. So I'm just going to drag it and drop it and put it up in the title section up here. And then I'm going to assign it the table caption. Now look what happens when I do that. When I set up a table title, and I'm going to refresh my screen, you'll notice the table title will repeat on the second and subsequent pages automatically. So if you have a title on a document, on a table that fits on a single page, great. But if it goes to 2 pages or 3 pages or 4 pages, the title will repeat without you doing anything, automatically across all the pages. There's even a really great feature that I love because it's so easy to add now, called the table continuation variable. So take a look at this. The last word on the second page is the word awards. I'm going to go to the table menu. I'm going to come down to Insert Table Variables. I'm going to insert a table continuation variable to the current table and click Insert. FrameMaker adds the word continued on the second page of the table, but not the first, automatically. And if I get that to fit on the previous page, the word continue is not going to appear because it's not going to go to a second page. In my work, I can have 40-page tables. And if somebody opens up in the middle, they don't know they're in the middle necessarily because the table title says, you know, what table they're on, but they don't know they're in the middle. Putting the word continued up there makes it really easy. So that's really cool. Okay, now it would be really handy if this text right here appeared at the top of both pages of the table as well. And to do that, I have to add a header row. So I'm going to go to the table menu. I'm going to choose Add Rows or Columns. I'm going to add one row to the header, and I'll click Add. Now I'm going to use drag and drop again. I'm going to drag this text. I'm going to drop it off on that top row, and I'm going to assign it the style called Cell Heading so it's bold. Now, when I refresh my screen, and refresh happens when I tap Control L, or if I just wait and keep moving, it'll refresh itself. Because you're watching me, I'm refreshing on command with tapping Control L. You can see now that that immediately appears at the top of both of the pages, which is great. Now, there is a table toolbar that I have up on my screen because I use it a lot. The table toolbar can be used to select, for example, rows. And I've got 2 empty rows now I no longer need. I'm going to select them, and I'm just going to click the Delete Row button. There's another row down here at the bottom. I don't need it. I'll select it, and I'll click the Delete Row button. So I can easily clean up the table that way. But I can also rearrange content fairly easily as well. Let's say, for example, I think that this row right here, this is a 2007 row, needs to be up in here someplace. If I select that row and I hold the Shift key, I can drag and drop and put it someplace else, and I've moved it to that location. I'm going to pick Undo. I'll do the same thing with the column, which is definitely easier to track. If I hold the Shift key and drop it off over here, see that blue line, blue highlight tells you what's going on. Then you can see that I've moved it over to a new location. I'm again going to hit Undo. Now, if I need to move the table someplace else, I can do that by dragging the anchor. I can just grab this anchor and I can put it someplace different. Maybe I want to hang it off the previous paragraph. I could drag it up any place in my document. I also could select the anchor, or if selecting the anchor is too hard for you because it is really skinny, I'm used to it, so I could get it without too much effort, but I watch my new students really struggle to get the anchor and then not get the period. You can always just click in the table and you can click the select table button. That's easier for a new user. Just depends on how you want to work. But then you could copy that table and paste it into a different document if you wanted to. So drag and drop with the anchor works, or you can copy and paste by selecting the table, whatever you want. All pretty straightforward. And with that, I'm going to get rid of these extra returns that I no longer need. And because this table is anchored to the word goals here now, it's moving up the page until it comes back. And then it's no longer on the next page, so it no longer has the word continued anywhere because it's not continuing. It's self-contained on that page. Okay, let's talk about resizing columns, then we'll move on to graphics. If I want to resize a column, I can do so by selecting at least one cell in a column. If I see that one sizing handle, I can drag it and it's going to resize the entire column. That's different from Word. Word never fails to surprise me when it does the little straddle merge thing that it does. But in FrameMaker, a sizing handle changes the entire column. If you have several columns selected, any sizing handle works. You grab a sizing handle and you can resize the columns. It's that simple. Now, if you decide that you would like to size the columns not by eye, but using some of the more automatic controls, you can do that in the table menu under Resize Columns. And let's say, for example, I'm looking at column 1 thinking, wow, column 1 is the perfect width. I love column 1. I wish they all matched column 1. I could come in here and pick, for example, to width of column number and then type in the number I want, 1. When I hit resize, they're all going to match column 1. That's a little skinny for the middle column, but you can see it did what I asked. FrameMaker is very obedient. It does what we ask. Now, there's another command in there. That's the one that I think is so fantastic, and that's to fit to selected cell's content. What that one is going to do is it will look at the contents of every single cell in this table, figure out the longest content in each column, and then size the columns to match the longest content. So if I go up to the table menu and I come down to Resize Columns, and I choose the last one to width of selected cell's contents, and I pick Resize, it's going to examine the content and make everything fit on a single line. Now again, I mentioned I have 40-page tables. I usually want to get the first column to fit everything, and then I distribute the rest of the space for the other columns with the other columns. I can't even see them all, so I'll just select that first column and then use that command to size my first column, and then I can adjust the other ones as needed. Okay, so that's a look at tables, and I didn't even point out that it had an automatic table number because it's built in, and it's not trying to confuse this one with these numbers. They're all separate. They're all separate here. They're all separate series. FrameMaker can keep them all straight once you tell it to. Now, I do want to add a graphic. I'm going to add the graphic on page 2. So I'm going to go to page 2. I'm going to press the Enter key. And before I add this graphic, I want to say that there are myriad approaches to managing graphics. I'm going to show you one technique. Your office might use a different one. If I'm teaching an intro class, I show 6 or 7 different techniques, and there's even a few I don't get to because I don't have time. So there's no right or wrong way to handle this. This is just one technique. Don't feel like if I'm doing it this way, I'm doing it wrong or you're doing it wrong. If it's working, keep going. But this is a technique for managing the anchored graphics. So I'm going to put a hard return there, and I'm doing that because I can use a paragraph style to control the spacing of my graphic. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to pick File, Import File for the 3rd time. This time, I'm going to pick a graphic, though. This is an AI file. That's Adobe Illustrator. It's a rocket ship that was drawn in Adobe Illustrator. But it's the first graphic we brought in. And so down on these buttons, remember I kept saying when you're bringing text in, copy it into the document. When you're bringing a graphic in, you want to import by reference, and that means link. And the reason is twofold. One, if you copy your graphics into your document, your FrameMaker file is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, bloated and sluggish. Graphics are large, and if you have a lot of graphics, it's going to slow things down. You will have a zippy file if you link your graphics. That's the first advantage. The second one, though, is if you have the ability to edit these graphics. For example, this is an Adobe Illustrator file. I'm an Adobe Illustrator instructor, right? I can open up this file in Illustrator, make some changes, and save it. Because it's linked to FrameMaker, the next time FrameMaker opens, it's going to open up my edited file. So I have the ability to edit outside of FrameMaker, and then FrameMaker picks up the changes without me having to do anything else. If you copy the graphics in, you got to replace them. So this is definitely a better way to go. So import by reference. I do want to say that there are exceptions to every rule in life and in FrameMaker, but as a general rule, we link our graphics, we copy our text. Okay, I'm going to hit insert. Now, you'll notice that three things appeared on my screen. There is an anchor. This is the second kind of anchor. There's table anchors and there's anchored frames. So this is a frame anchor. The second thing to notice is that there is a frame around my graphic, and then here's my graphic. Now, I've been teaching FrameMaker for a really long time, and on a regular basis, I've had students tell me, you must add an anchored frame before you are allowed to add a graphic. You just saw that's not true. I heard that this year. I heard that in 2022. I don't know who's perpetuating that rumor, but I want you to know that if you import a graphic, FrameMaker will draw the anchored frame for you. There is never a reason to do two steps if you can get away with one. You want to streamline your work so you're efficient, so that you can have your nights and weekends free. No one wants to spend the weekend working on FrameMaker. You want to get in, get the job done, go out and play. At least that's my approach to life. Okay, so if you don't like where this graphic landed, you have some choices. I'm going to go ahead and select the frame, and I'm going to head over here to the anchored frame properties. This panel, which I already had docked over here, lets me modify things about what this frame looks like. For example, I'm going to change the alignment to left and edit frame. That way my frame is on the left-hand side. There's also an option to go to the right, or you can go to the left of the left pages or the right of the right pages, and it can adjust automatically as it is shifting from left to right pages, which is really cool. I can also decide that I want my graphic to be in another location besides right below its anchor. There are lots of anchoring positions in here. For example, one of them is at the top of the column. If I choose that, my graphic's going to go sit right up here at the very top of this column when I click Edit Frame. And that's exactly where it went. Now, take a look at this idea. I'm going to go to Fit Page in Window View. Keep an eye on my anchor. It's right down here. If I begin to add returns to press this down, the graphic is not going to move because it's still at the top of the page with the anchor. Until I push that graphic or that anchor to the next page, it's about ready to go to the next page. As soon as the anchor doesn't fit on this page, it's going to go to the next page. It's going to take the frame with it. So you can see that it follows the instructions. This instruction was be at the top left of the page with the anchor. You can be at the bottom of the page. You have all sorts of possibilities with these anchors. I'm going to undo all that and put it back, undo it again, put it back, and maybe I'll just go back to choose below current line. Yep, this one. Okay, edit frame. Now, I want this to be a little bit bigger, and I'm going to do that by resizing the frame first. So I'm going to make my frame the width of the column and make it about 3 inches tall. And I'm looking at the status bar in the lower left-hand corner to get the sizing, although I've run off mouse space, so here we go. That'll work. Something like that. Looks good. And you'll notice when I do that, that my graphic is independent of the frame. It doesn't care what size my frame is. It came in the size it came in. I can resize it by tugging on the handles like you just saw me do, or I could say, hey, FrameMaker, can you do that for me? And it will if I ask it to. There's fit to frame and fit to frame proportionately. Proportionately will maintain the aspect ratio so it will not get distorted as it tries to fill the frame. I'm going to click on fit to frame proportionately, and sure enough, it does exactly that. So now the graphic is fitting the frame. Now I'm looking at the spacing above the graphic and at the anchor, and I'm thinking there's really too much space there. I want to modify it. And so a common technique in a lot of templates is to use a paragraph style specifically for a FrameMaker. That'll make it really tiny, and I've got one up here. It's called Anchor Image. It's the first one in my catalog. So when I click Anchor Image, what happened is it made the anchor 2 points tall. It's so tiny we can't see it. So it's tiny, it's not going to print, it's just sitting there. And then I want to show you one more property of that style. If I go to the Paragraph Designer and I look at Basic Properties, and I have to just wiggle my mouse here because it's not showing it. Give me 1 second here. There we go. This is my style called Anchor Image. Down here, I'm looking at a feature of FrameMaker that says Next Paragraph Style, Figure Caption. What that says is if my cursor is in an anchor image paragraph and if I press enter, the next paragraph will be assigned figure caption. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the page, and I'm going to press the enter key, and I created a new paragraph under the picture, and FrameMaker automatically assigned the figure caption, and the figure caption automatically has numbering, and all I had to do was press the enter key and then type in my actual caption. This is yet another example of FrameMaker working for you. This is why we need thoughtful design of your template so that you're shifting as much of the burden that you can on FrameMaker, taking as much as you can off of yourself. Okay. One last thing to talk about, and then we are done. I wanted to go back and talk about master pages. So I'm going to go to a fit page in window view. And I'd like you to notice I do not have headers or footers in this document. Now, a good template would have those in already. I pulled them out specifically because I wanted to talk to you about them in an effort to talk to you about master pages. I'll go through more advanced master pages in a future webinar. This is master page basics. So let's say that I want to have page numbers at the top of my pages. I can do that by going to the master pages, so view menu, master pages. Remember from earlier today that the master pages hold the content that needs to repeat on all the body pages. That's its job. Now, this is a right master page. I'm going to click on the right-hand side. And the way I add a page number is as simple as insert. That's where you insert things into a FrameMaker document. Insert, headers and footers. And then FrameMaker pulls the 3 most popular choices out of the rest of the options. The first one they think I'm going to want is insert page number, and I do. So I'll put insert page number, and I've got it. And then I'm going to go to the previous page, and I'm going to insert the page number again. When I go to my body pages, the page numbers are included at the top of all the pages. It's that simple. Anything you add to a master page will appear in that location in all the body pages. Now, the page numbers are variables. I had to choose insert page number. I couldn't just type in a number because it would put that one number on all the pages. If you type static information in, like you saw me put my name in this morning, earlier in this webinar, it just appears like that in all the pages. Okay. I do want to add the footers before we wrap this up. And for the footers, I want to be a little fancier. I want to collect information from the page. I want to have the words general description appear at the bottom of every footer. And then I want to have whatever heading 1 is there. Now, FrameMaker can do all this for you based on the paragraph style. You have to know the style names of the content you want to collect, and you have to be very exact with how you type it in. These names are H1 underscore heading 1, H0 underscore heading 0, and H1 underscore heading 1. Those are the 2 that I want. The first one is H0 underscore heading 0. FrameMaker has no flexibility with typing. FrameMaker is not a human who can say, oh, they meant a space when they put an underline, or they meant uppercase when they type lowercase. FrameMaker needs you to be precise about the typing of these styles. People can adapt, but computers can't. So when you're typing in style names, you've got to know exactly what you're typing. Having them on screen makes it that much easier because you can look and see how that was spelled. Okay, so for that, I'm going to go to the View menu, and I'm going to go to the Master Pages. I'm going to click on the right page footer, and I'll go to the Insert menu, Headers and Footers, And what I want isn't any of the three listed, it's something else. Now, all of these are variables. So when I click Insert Other, the Variables pod, which I had docked over here on the right, opens up. In the future, I can just go directly there. I don't have to go through the menu because it was already open. But if you're not sure where it is, you'll use the menu first until you get oriented. And here's my page number variable that I just used. Now I'm going to come down to the running header footer 1 variable. I know this is small, but what it says is the name is running header footer 1. The definition is paratext h0 underscore heading 0. I've already typed that in. Right? That was done in advance to save some time. That spelling must exactly match the paragraph catalog. But in English, this is saying, okay, FrameMaker, go find any text, any paragraph text, styled with heading 0. I'm going to double click and add it to my screen. I'll type in a colon and a space. And then we have 18 potential running header footer variables. Most of us don't need that many. I'm looking for running header footer variable 2. And this definition is also ready to go. It says paratext h1 underscore heading 1, meaning, okay, FrameMaker, now go find the paragraph text of anything styled with h1 underscore heading 1. I'm going to double click it and put them in. Now that's the right page. I need to go to the left page. So I'll pop over here, and it's a little bit quicker now. I'll just double click, colon space, and I will double click. Don't see my cursor for some reason. Where'd it go? There it is. Double click. We got it. Good. And then I'm going to go back to the view menu and back to the body pages. And you can see now that the footer is collecting the content from the page. Page 1 says general description, history of flight, because that's the heading 0 and that's the heading 1. When I go to the next page, it now says overview because it's a different heading 1. And when I go to the next page, it now shows the vehicle structure because, again, the heading 1 is changing. And I showed this at the beginning, but if I come in here and I type in something like the long history of flight, watch my footer as it refreshes. It's seeing that content and updating it in real time. Okay, so here was my plan for the day. I wanted to introduce you to Adobe FrameMaker. I wanted to bust that myth that FrameMaker is hard to learn. I've had so many students come to class on day 1 thinking that this is an impossible program. They're never going to figure it out. They can't do it. The same ones who walk out elated at the end of the week when they have figured out FrameMaker and know how to use it. And I think that that's because it's hard to teach yourself FrameMaker. If you look at FrameMaker, you don't really know where to start. You don't know the importance of paragraph styles, don't know how to get around. It's tough to teach yourself, and the mistakes you make at the beginning can haunt you for a really long time. If you learn FrameMaker and learn it correctly, it's actually very easy to use. I wanted you to see that. There's definitely a learning curve. It's not something you can just look at and start using. No Adobe program is. I mean, show me any Adobe program that you can look at and just be an expert at right away, and I'll be pretty surprised. Certainly the ones I teach are not like that. So anyway, I wanted to bust that myth. I wanted to show you how to get around the interface, where things are, what they're called. I wanted to go over the importance of workspaces. I wanted to break down a FrameMaker document so you can see the components that are in there. And then I wanted to show you how to create a new file, how to add content, how to style the content, how to add a table and control it, how to add an anchored frame, and how those master pages work. I do have 2 additional webinars coming up. I hope you will join me again. I'd love to see you back in there. You could definitely welcome to reach out to me directly. You're really going to have better off probably looking at my blog, which is free, and you can look at it at any point. You can ask questions through the blog, but your best bet is going to be the FrameMaker forums, because I'm just one of several people who are on there on a regular basis answering questions. I do love the questions on numbering, so if you get stuck on numbering and you can't figure it out, let us know. If I'm the one that sees it, I'm definitely going to be answering it for you. As I said, I try to get on every day if I'm not traveling or in class all day. Okay, thank you all very much. I'll see you at the next webinar. It's Barb Binder, Rocky Mountain Training. Bye.